Hello, my name is Nicol Wheatley. I'm a Scottish artist based in Kinrossshire, and I've been asked to do a painting demonstration for you guys. I mainly make landscapes, and I mainly make them in oils. And as I live up in Kinrossshire, I'm constantly kind of fascinated by the landscape around me, particularly because Kinross is quite elevated. The clouds and the cloudscapes that they form are a big part of what I paint. And that's one of the subjects that we're going to look at tonight. As well as making paintings, I also make large murals, large mosaics, and I also occasionally go and work on the big feature films. So that's who I am. Okay. So the painting I'm going to demonstrate today comes from a sketch that I saw when I was out on my bike the other day, and cycling along I saw this wonderful sunset. I got fascinated by the way that the clouds were massing against it. So I did a couple of things. I took some photography and I did a very quick sketch, which you can just see here, and that's really just the starting off point for a lot of where my paintings come from. What I've done is then kind of look to see what's the important elements of this, which is the way that the trees here mass against the clouds with the sunset happening kind of down at the lower point. And then I've done a more developed sketch showing how this would work. And I've also got some photography, which shows the image as it stands. Now, if I was working through one of my own paintings, there would be quite a lot more body of work. This is just a demonstration, so there's 3 sketches, a couple of photographs, a bit of Photoshop work done, just exploring the kind of balance of tones and stuff. That's all I've done at this point, and so now we're going to start showing you how I approach the painting. I always think it's interesting to see how other artists lay out their palettes and stuff like that. Those are the tools of our trade, so you can see how it's done. This is my palette. It's a stainless steel palette, and it's on a movable set of drawers. So these are on wheels, so they can be moved around easily around the studio. My palette is Prussian blue, burnt umber, French ultramarine, turquoise, king's blue, Schnegen blue light, viridian, yellow ochre, cadmium orange, cadmium red, brilliant pink, alizarin crimson, cadmium yellow, Naples yellow, cadmium yellow light, Indian yellow, titanium white, lemon yellow, and bright yellow. I use 3 mediums, sorry. I use Liquin from Winsor & Newton, and I also use Liquin Impasto from Winsor & Newton, and I also use, this is a small bowl of genuine terps. For cleaning my brushes, I have white spirit, and I have them, brushes are sat in a large sieve, which in turn sits in a large paint pot. The reason for that is when I clean my brush, the particulate, the pigment will float off the brush, go through the sieve and go down. So I always have clean terps that I'm washing my brush in. Now, when I'm trying to control my colour quite carefully, I'll make sure that my brush is clean and then make sure it's dry before I go on to mixing my paint and adding my mediums onto it. I do have some other mediums that I occasionally use, including larch turpentine and some varnishes that I might use in certain types of glazing, and a bit of linseed oil. But these are the 3 main mediums that I use. So because it's a twilight kind of sunlit scene, I'm going to use a pink ground on the canvas. Now, when you're thinking about any bit of painting that you do, There's always going to be a lightest light and a darkest dark, okay? So that's one of the reasons why artists use grounds, is that the ground then means that you're then working from mid-tone, mid-color perhaps, to the light and to the dark. If you start with a white canvas, you've got to work from the light down to the dark, and that works for watercolor because you're using the luminosity of the paper to create a lot of the effect in watercolor. In this case, I'm trying to get that evening sunset feel, and the pink's going to help me do that. So that's what I'm going to start with. And first thing I'm going to do is take my sketchbook, have a look at it, and do a drawing. Now, I already filmed this and completely screwed up the editing of it. So this is the canvas from the previous filming. So this is going to act as part of the source material for today's painting. Okay, so here's the sketchbook. Here's the charcoal. What I'm interested in this painting is this block of trees behind which the light's coming through. In fact, Cleach Hills are coming down here. And then you've got this great big mass of cloud. Sunset happening across it. And you've got some lovely cirrus cloud up here. So I'm interested in this mass against this mass. Okay, so that's roughly where everything's going to go. When you think about it, there's the golden sections. So you can see where the two masses sit with the golden sections and how we're pulling the whole kind of composition down to create dramatic effect. First thing I'm going to do is just take a wee bit of turpentine and seal the charcoal onto the canvas so that it doesn't come back to inform the paints when we're doing it later. Okay, just nice loose sketch, just showing where everything's going to be. Okay, so I'm just going to let that dry for a wee bit. Okay, so the next stage is to block the canvas out. Now, the reason that we do this is we're trying to establish tones and colours quickly on the canvas. Making art is about making decisions about where you put things and how they're going to work against each other and how it balances and how you create message through what you do and how you get the drawing and the composition, the tone and the colour correct. A lot of this decision-making process you can only really do once you have information. So you don't want to spend your time painting nice, beautiful detail until you've got the general idea of what you're doing on the canvas. So this is why, as artists, we work from the general to the specific, okay? So I'm going to be working with oil paints, so I'm going to start blocking in the canvas. So this is just a process, and just watch and see what you think. Obviously it's quite a wet paint that I'm using. This is a mix of King's Blue, pink, Prussian Blue, and a liquid to create a bit more flow into the paint. Wee bit of white, a wee bit of yellow, just trying to catch some of the sunset colours into it. Just really just trying to get rid of quite a lot of the pink fairly quickly. My wife says this is a great moment to go and get a cup of tea. Trying to catch this lovely sky blue down at the sunset level. Liquid to increase the flow, so the smooth brush marks. Not quite happy with that. It's a bit, got a tiny bit of green in it. So we'll just take it off. Go back to it. Clean that paint off the palette. Start again from scratch. More cadmium orange on the palette. Make sure the brush is nice and clean. Sorry, I'm not talking very much during this period. Just trying to get as much as possible on as quickly as possible so you can see how this bit of it works. My old art teacher was taught by her father, who was taught by a man, who was taught by a man, who was taught by Monet. Monet didn't believe in black. He doesn't believe it's a good colour to use on your palette. So to that end, he suggests that the darkest colour you use is burnt umber mixed with Prussian blue. Gives you a lovely dark colour, and that's going to be the basis of the drawing in the foreground here. Okay, so as you can see, not a huge amount of time, but we've started to block in quite a lot of the canvas. We've got rid of a lot of the pink. To that end, we can see where things are going to be now. So we know roughly, what's happening with this, what's happening with this, what's happening with that. And that will allow us to make decisions that will hopefully make for a better painting. So just stop for a wee second and then I'll come back. I'm not quite sure how these cameras work. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this. I hope it's okay. So having blocked in the canvas, the next phase is just to start going back into the drawing of it. So that's what we're going to do next. If I can find the right brush. So we're starting to draw in these lower clouds. I think my body's going to block it, but you can see where I'm drawing from. Okay, so we've got okay. So starting a wee bit of the drawing there. I'm just going to stop for a minute and change the camera. So this next point, I'm just trying to get a wee bit more of the drawing in. So some of these trees against the horizon. Now obviously this is just a very rough sketch for the purposes of the demonstration. So this painting will probably get binned once I finish the demo, but you can see if I was doing these trees for a real painting, there'd be quite a lot more time spent just trying to get the detail into them so that you can make it the subject of the painting, as it were. Just drawing a brush across this bit where the horizon meets the, just to soften that line. There's a wee bit of softness just because of the amount of distance. These the Cliche Hills, this bit over here, is really quite far away from these fields that I'm drawing. And although there's this incredible contrast between the sky because of the sky and the land because of the sunset, just trying to get a little hint of that blueness of distance into these hills to try and suggest that bit of distance there. And just painting wet on wet, just smoothing it in with a soft brush, creating that bit of distance there. And then in front of that, those hills, there is a couple of raised bits in the line of the hedges. Okay, now this is a stubble field, so to try and catch a bit of that, I'm just going to take a little bit of a orange and drag it across here, dry brush it into this, and just to create that kind of warmth, a suggestion that the stubble's still catching a little bit of the light. There we go. And then get back into these bits of drawing. If you ever get a chance, have a really good look at how Salvador Dali painted clouds. The man was an absolute genius. There's bits in the some of his paintings where it's really just unbelievable bits of painting. So at the moment I'm making these lighter, trying to keep them clean in terms of the paint, I'll probably go back over and try and get more of the sun, the orange sun catching them. So I'll probably knock them back a wee bit later on. Here. So we're starting to get a sense of where everything is at the moment. It's then going to be more about refining and refining and refining this painting until you get the kind of overall shape of it correct. So but at this stage you can see roughly where a lot of the kind of big stuff has been done. Now that we've got the stuff in place and we can start working on the drawing, and we can still build the drawing much further than this, at this point we're ready to start painting. We've blocked out the canvas, we've got the rough idea of where the drawing is, we can make sure that the composition is correct, we know roughly where the tonal relationships are, where the darkest darks and where the lightest lights are, and we know roughly where the colours are going to be, so we know how the colour is going to work. More importantly, we can step back from the painting and have a good long consider of it before we start making our artistic decisions about where the painting is going to go. So that's where we're trying to get to in the first instance. Every single painting is about the start of it and then where you take it from there. Okay? So that's as far as I'm going to take it tonight, because it's just a quick half-hour demonstration about how we start a painting. And starting a painting is fundamental to everything that follows. So having blocked it in, got an idea of where everything is, got some of the tonal values, some of the colours where I want to be, I'll let it set aside for a wee while. One of the biggest bits that you can have with painting, and this is one of the most overlooked bits as painters that we do, is that period of consideration. So in the studio, these paintings go up on the wall and I sit and look and think about them, and that allows me to make clever, good decisions, which then hopefully, well, I'm not too sure about the clever, make good paintings. So having started the painting, it will now go up, come back onto the easel, get painted, go back onto the wall, get examined, come back onto the easel and get painted again. And hopefully it will end up being a good painting. Okay, thank you very much for having me to do this demonstration. All the best.